Welcome to another Artistry of Science video, and today we are going to be doing a headpiece build for my wife for choreography that she's working on, a dance. So some time ago I had created these AI pictures, and there were just these kind of woodland creatures, and they had branches coming up out of their head, and I'm exploring more and more with masks and things like that. And I wanted them cloaked and sort of in darkness. And my wife liked them so much that she had the idea to do a dance around this. So then I had to come up with a way to actually make these. And originally I was thinking of doing sort of the thicker branches maybe and making those out of a wire armature and then some either air clay or some various foams and sort of carving those. But then I decided not to do it that way, and I wanted to try using the branches from our tree in our front yard, which is a massive, massive tree, and it is an Australian bottle tree, and it has these really cool, gnarly branches. But they're very thin, thick like these reference images, but I wanted to see how that would work. And so I decided to use those. So the first thing I did was to cast a female figure, top of the head, and I used plaster bandages. And then I filled that with plaster so that I had a very strong surface, because this is going to be under the vacuum former and it will crush it if it is not sturdy. And then I wanted a little space in there so if we wanted to add some foam for comfort if we needed to. And I wanted to texture it a little bit so it felt more organic. So I added some clay on top of that form, textured a little bit, and then put it on the vacuum former that I had built. And so from there, I didn't capture video of the vacuum forming, but basically I'm heating my PETG plastic up, and the elements are going to heat that until it starts to sag. And then once it is sagging, I lower it down over the buck or the mold, and then I engage a vacuum or draw a vacuum, and it sucks all the air out from underneath the plastic and form fits it right around the buck or the mold that I made. And there we have a nice shell. That is, I used pretty sturdy plastic on this one. Most of the masks, or the last set of masks I made, I wanted them a lot more lightweight, so I used really thin PETG. This one is like what you would use if you were making armor, like a stormtrooper helmet or something like that, and you really want it to be sturdy and not have a lot of flex to it. And so that worked out pretty well. So sorry about just the images at the beginning there, but now we're into the video portion. And here I've got that vacuum form shell cut out, and it is just sitting on my bench. And I'm trying to figure out how I'm going to attach these long but very narrow branches. And so my idea is to hot glue them to the shell, which is what I'm doing here. And I have this handy little dowel miter saw, which is just wonderful. And I use it for a lot of other things, especially for cutting dowels for the automata that I make. But it worked really good for chopping off the ends of these little branches and making sure they were flush to the mold or the shell that I'm going to glue them down to. So I'm just putting them in there, lopping them off right at the base, and then pretty much just trying to figure out where these are going to go and hoping that the hot glue works really well. So I marked a couple at first, and then I just kind of went for it after that. If you don't have a cordless hot glue gun, they are amazing and wonderful, and mine runs off my DeWalt battery that my drill and all my other stuff run off of, so it's awesome. You just take it anywhere, you don't have to worry about the cord, and it heats up pretty fast. And anyway, that is a wonderful tool. So I'm just getting things ready while the glue gun is finishing heating up, and then I'm just going to go for it. So you see these branches. Some of these branches are 3-4 foot long, and I'm hoping that the hot glue will hold it and it won't just pop right off. This is some pretty good, strong hot glue that I'm using. And the one thing that, as I was doing this, I wished I would have had when I first started doing it, because hot glue takes quite a while to harden, especially when there's this big weight that it's holding up, right? And so I had to sit there, sometimes, at least it felt like, almost 10 minutes per each one of these sticks that I was gluing on, and hold it, and it was, still moving and still moving. The best way to do it, and the way I did it after this initial set that I did, was I went and bought some canned air. I have compressors. I don't normally use canned air, but canned air, when you hold the can upside down and you pull the trigger, the propellant is super, super cold. And if you've ever used canned air and had it, kind of blow out some of that, super, super cold liquid that instantly evaporates, it is a wonderful way to cool down hot glue pretty much instantly. And so these initial ones, I kind of cut the video because you want to see, this is fast forwarded obviously right now, and it's still not that exciting to watch somebody sit there and hold these damn things. So this is the next day. I went and got canned air, and I was able to put these on, the rest of these branches on, very fast by chilling them, and it would hold in place. They're on there pretty good. I didn't try to pull one off. I think I would have snapped the branch before I could have actually pulled the hot glued portion off of that shell. And I also went and drilled holes in the shell, and I could have drilled bigger ones potentially, but basically I'm going to take a 2-part epoxy clay or putty and put that all over the entire shell and molded up the branches a little bit. That's going to really, really securely hold those branches on. And I wanted it to push through when I'm shoving it on there really hard. I wanted it to push down through those holes and almost make like a little rivet in it when it hardened. So here I'm doing part A, and then there's a part B of this 2-part epoxy. You can see I switch hands because I don't want to pull out of the hardener with my hand that just touched the other part, or you'll end up hardening some of the stuff that's in your bucket. So I use my right hand for the one, my left hand for the other, weighed it, guessed, hoping that maybe 4 ounces for each part, total of 8 ounces would be enough. And it turned out to be pretty much the perfect amount. I probably couldn't have got it any closer, and I didn't really have much waste at all. So with this putty clay stuff, you have to mix it thoroughly. You don't want any lines or striations in it. And so you're mixing for about 2 minutes, and I just sort of flattened it, folded it over, kneaded it, flattened it, folded it over, and just went and went and went. And it's available in black, white, and I think a couple of other colors. We were going for a black base. I want that darkness, and then I'm going to dry brush some lighter browns and some colors on there. But I wanted to start with the dark. So that's why I bought the black putty, which is really easy to tell when it's mixed and when it's not mixed, because it should be a complete solid black throughout without the little lighter colored striations of the other part of the epoxy. So that looks really good. Next, I decided to try my little pasta maker roller that works really good for clay, especially Sculpey and things like that. What I didn't want to do is ruin my little pasta thing, because this epoxy will harden, and it did leave a little residue on the actual rollers. So the big thing there was I made sure that as soon as I was done with this, its work time is about 1 to 2 hours. And as soon as I was done putting it on, I went in, I used soapy water, put it in a bucket, scrubbed it, and then I took paper towels and ran them through it numerous times and got all of that off there. And it easily cleaned up with soap and water before it got hardened and caused any issues. So I'm running it in there. I want it super flat because you'll see in a second the way I'm putting this on, I'm tearing strips and I'm wrapping it around the branches, pushing it up the branch a little bit, and then just really, really pushing it hard into that shell that I had made and down into the holes as well. So it kind of went through there a little, and then when it hardened, it'll really be locked in there. But this stuff sticks to just about anything, and it becomes a very, very hard shell within 24 hours. So I just start tearing off strips, and I haven't done this before. I have not used epoxy clay before, and it was really, really easy to work with. I wasn't sure how it would be. I thought it might be really sticky or something else. You definitely have to wear gloves. You would not want to use this stuff with just your bare skin, or not only can it stick to it, and you probably wouldn't be able to get the stuff off very easily. It can irritate it. It's yucky stuff, but with gloves on, it was easy to work with, easy to texture, easy to smooth out. And so this is sped up really fast, but I am just laying this down in strips and then, wiping it in, wrapping around the branch, and then smoothing out the line, the join lines of the different strips, and it's smoothed out really nice and blended in. You can also use water on this as you're smoothing, and it'll give you a very smooth texture, and the water doesn't affect it once it cures. So I'm just working around. There's no way these branches are going to pop off with this epoxy wrapped around them as well as the hot glue. Before, I wasn't sure if I was going to have to use bigger branches and have to put a screw through the bottom of the headpiece, up through the plastic and into a branch, and then wrap it, or wire them. They're so lightweight that there was no issue whatsoever with just doing it the way that I did it. So now I'm covering big strips. Now the one thing about this shell is, and this character, I wasn't sure how many branches I should use. So this is my prototype, and it seems pretty cool. Amber likes it. I don't think I need to use more branches, but I might, because there's going to be a leader. And so that leader may get some additional branches that I may dry brush on some different colors. She kind of thought maybe some gold mica powder or something over the black for the leader. So I prepped a couple branches all by themselves so that I could do some different painting techniques on it, and then let Amber decide what she likes the best, and I can look at it and see what I think works good. So now I'm just taking a little sculpting tool and sort of making sure that the clay is worked up the branch a little bit and that there's no air in there. Not that air wouldn't hurt it at all, but I just want it really tight up against holding those branches so when it gets solid that there won't be any issues. So here I actually said, well, I didn't glue one on, but what I want to see is if I can take a small branch, put some putty on there, stick it on, and wouldn't even need to hot glue some of these smaller branches. The issue is the putty is so soft and easy to work with that the branch kept falling over that I added on there. So I ended up having to take some wire and wrap around and kind of wire it to one of the other branches to hold it on there, because it just kept wanting to sag down more and more and more. And the other thing I'm doing here is I've got a little extra epoxy, so I decided to make some coils and run it down the back of it, sort of like roots, and work it in there really good so they look like they're deep, but you can see them. And I'm using another little tool and some water to work those in and smooth them in. All the while doing this, and then later on realizing that I could have not done this because that whole back is going to be completely covered by a hoodie or by a cloak or something like that. So a lot of that, except for the branch area, which is going to be fully exposed, is going to be completely covered by costume. So I didn't really need to do that. So here I'm wiring that branch to some other branches because I found out it's definitely a better idea to just hot glue those down, the branches you want, than to try and add them later on and then deal with having to wire things in place until that epoxy hardens up enough to support it, which it did. By within a couple hours, it was starting to harden up and the branch was self-supported after that. So here I'm just using some water, still working in the roots in the back, and then realized I didn't really need to do that. And so the final thing I wanted to do was add some kind of organic texture. And so I tried some wax paper, crumple that up to make wrinkles. I thought that would probably make deeper impressions, but it ended up that the saran wrap just all wrinkled up, and pushing that in there really made the most organic little texture lines going around there. So I'm just working that crumpled up saran wrap all the way around everywhere, pushing it in deeper in some areas. And this doesn't show the texture as well as it actually is there, but that's the epoxy's on, just the branches. And the last thing I decided to do was to spray the whole thing with plasti dip. And the reason I did that is I wanted to strengthen those branches a little bit more, and it's still very flexible and everything, but I wanted to strengthen those, and I wanted to give it a nice foundation for the paint that I'm going to dry brush on later.